Antigua y Barbuda, aquí con su embajador Ronald. Adelante, embajador.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, since this is the first time I'm taking the floor since you have been acting in the position of the President of this Permanent Council, may I, sir, congratulate you on your excellent work over the last few meetings that we have had the pleasure of having you preside. Now, Mr. Chairman, my delegation makes this statement with a very heavy heart. We have collaborated in this council with the delegation of Guatemala on several resolutions and declarations that have advanced the interests of this organization and the people of this hemisphere. We have the highest regard for the Ambassador of Guatemala, my friend Rita Discioli, and for the Foreign Minister, Mario Bucaro, who we have just heard. In this context, we are saddened that we must express our great concern about events by authorities in Guatemala that place democracy in that country at risk, particularly in relation to Articles 3 and 6 of the Inter-American Democratic Charter. Article 3 calls for the exercise of power in accordance with the rule of law, the pluralistic system of political parties, free and fair elections, and the independence of the branches of the government. Not to use the independence of the branches of the government as an excuse for unwarranted action, but to actually recognize and uphold the independence of the branches of government. However, it has become clear that in the run-up to the June 25th presidential and other elections, and since then, including events that took place yesterday, to which reference was made earlier today by the leader of the Electoral Observation Mission, there have been abuses of authority to frustrate the will of the electorate, particularly with regard to the presidential elections. My delegation will not now rehearse the several abuses that have taken place. We've just heard them all, especially by the Public Prosecutor's Office, designed to overturn the result of the first round of the elections, which have now twice been upheld by the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, the TSE. These deliberate attempts by the public prosecutor to topple the express will of the electorate have been well documented by the OAS Election Observation Mission and by other international agencies, particularly the European Union. However, my delegation notes that the result of the elections and the recount of the votes led to final results which were almost identical to the preliminary results. There was no conclusive evidence of vote tampering, which is the unsupported allegation on which the public prosecutor continues to base actions designed to disqualify presidential candidate Bernardo Arevalo and his Movimiento Semilla. Furthermore, Guatemalan law prohibits the disqualification of any party once the election process has started. Consequently, my delegation is deeply concerned that instead of upholding the law, the public prosecutor is violating it. This is not only unacceptable, it runs counter to the spirit and letter of the Inter-American Democratic Charter. The Supreme Electoral Tribunal has authorized that the second presidential elections to determine a winner will be held on August the 20th with the two frontrunners, Sandra Torres of the National Union of Hope and Bernardo Arevalo of Semilla as the contenders. My delegation urges the authorities in Guatemala to respect the democratic process and the will of the electorate by ensuring that those runoff elections are free and fair in keeping with the rule of law. Credible, free and fair elections are the bedrock of representative democracy. Mr. Chairman, my delegation also calls on the General Secretariat not only to observe the runoff elections on 20th of August, but also to keep this Council fully informed of developments in Guatemala on this issue. Finally, my delegation thanks the OAS Electoral Observation Mission, headed by the distinguished former Foreign Minister of Paraguay, for its professional and careful work on these elections in Guatemala and for the reports it has submitted. The observer mission to Guatemala underscores the important role that international election observation missions play in ensuring that the will of the electorate is respected and democracy is upheld. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.